imagine our industry 5-10 years from now, I go crazy. Now, it's based on data and trends, but it is an imaginative future. You know, I shared some with NAB about what would happen if Apple got a retail banking license overnight. It would shape everything in this country for mortgages, home loans, all the other products and services. It would fundamentally shift the ball game literally overnight. They would probably steal 30% market share in 2 years. Well, Apple can give you a Mac and an iPhone for free and chuck in a home loan at a different basis points because they are like a bank. They have more cash on hand than the US Federal Reserve. What could they do with that cash?
Sounds unrealistic, right? Like something out of a sci-fi boardroom. But what if it wasn't? What if the rules you've trusted your whole career suddenly didn't apply anymore? How would you respond? What choices would you make if everything you thought was safe was suddenly up for grabs? In her role as President of WPP, Australia and New Zealand, Rose Herceg thinks about this every day. Her job is to think about totally left-field ideas, challenge the impossible, and spot opportunities before anyone else sees them. Rose has built campaigns that reach millions, led teams through complexity, and learned that true innovation comes from curiosity, courage, and the willingness to step into the unknown. And now she's asking you to do the same. This is Performance Intelligence, the show that helps you see differently, act boldly, and unlock potential in everyday life. Rose, you've led teams, you've built companies and helped shape how culture and business intersect in this country. Where I'd like to begin is somewhere much earlier, not the boardroom, but let's go back to the kitchen. I'd love to know the conversations, the environment you grew up in that has shaped you to be the woman you are now.
Well, Andrew, it's such a pleasure to be here. My family, I'm a kid of immigrants, Croatian parents, and so my earliest memories and the way that I was shaped is in a culture that was full of love and an older brother and an older sister. I'm the baby of 3. Every conversation in our household was about having a point of view on the world, and my parents were very political. In fact, they were very instrumental in returning Croatia to a democracy. So when they came here, it was communist Yugoslavia. So we were politically minded and we understood freedom and the value and the role of freedom. And I think when you grow up in that culture, you have a very different point of view on everything. And I think that has shaped pretty much how I roll in the workplace. My mum and dad were, again, public speaking when we were kids, and when people would come for dinner, we were always, have a conversation at the table, shake their hand, look them in the eye. So all that kind of good stuff that kids need.
You're very media savvy.
Yeah, their mum and dad were like, when you turn up, you present, you know how to string a sentence together. When you're in a different language, because I think in Croatian, I don't think in English.
Oh, do you?
So you're translating, but there's something to be said about bilingual that does make you really be articulate, and they were big on that. They were like, really learn your words and use your words.
So when we speak, do you still think in Croatian?
Always.
Yeah, and then you translate to English?
Dream in Croatian. I think about big ideas. In every client meeting, I'm thinking in Croatian. There's a beauty to the way that the imagination works, and then oftentimes, and I've got some clients who are Croatian, they're like, just tell me in Croatian, and they're like, oh, that's exactly what we want. And then I translate it into English. It's crazy, right?
So you think that gives you an advantage because there's a decoding.
Totally right. And there's an expansiveness to the thinking. And even on my whiteboard, a lot of things are written in Croatian. And so my leaders will come in and they're like, what does that mean? What does that mean? And they're like, oh my God, that's so amazing. Because not all words translate. Croatian is a beautiful language that has many more words than the English language for things like love and emotion. It's not everything translates. So I sometimes need the other words that are better.
Yeah, what a great learning. Was that challenging? My partner's Lebanese, so growing up 40 plus years ago in the schoolyard, if you weren't the kid, I grew up in country New South Wales, and so stereotypical. We had a Chinese store that was owned by Chinese. The grocer or the fruit and veg was Pete the Greek and a good mate of mine. It's so stereotypical. I didn't have that cultural view back then. I've got much, much bigger now. Was that challenging for you as a child?
For us, it wasn't, because we really felt that it was such a bonus to speak a language other than English, be surrounded by culture, food, dance, folklore. Going to school, we were still the different kids with the funny food in our lunchbox, for sure. But in the end, we would swap lunches with the kids and give them a glimpse into Croatian culture. And I think my mum and dad...
Bit more than Vegemite sandwiches,
yeah, a bit more
Rose.
than Vegemite sandwiches, the really cool stuff. You know, prosciutto sandwiches when you're like 5 is very cool when you're a kid at school. What my mum and dad did very well is they learnt the language really well. They learnt English. They integrated into the school, Catholic school system. So they would invite the other parents to our home to get to know them. So there'd be a pig on the spit in the backyard. And all of these Aussie families, the Skippy families as we used to call them growing up, would fall in love with my mum and dad. And they were very clever. That's a politically astute move. Let's become and integrate, show the community what our culture is all about, have them be a part of our broader family. And I think that was really smart. So we were always part of the community. It was great, great move.
So a couple of words you've mentioned. It was about that connectivity, the difference, though, and embracing that. So many kids now are learning languages. It's really cool. Back then, it was trying to assimilate, wasn't it? Let's drop our motherland language, but your parents encouraged that. I get the feeling there was this contrarian or this polarity in you. You could hold two thoughts at the same time. It wasn't black or white. I was listening to a podcast, the Limitless Equation podcast, and I found myself going, yes, Rose, I totally agree. You said the following: I love smart people who disagree with me, and it's important to have people around you who challenge you. Now, in coaching psychology, we call this healthy conflict. One of the things, what's your swear level like? Do you swear a little bit? A lot?
I can go days where I'm really tidy and Catholic in the way that you're raised to not swear, and there are days where I just let loose. It's nothing quite as effective as a swear word in really telling someone how you're feeling.
I'll keep it mid-range because you know I work in sports. So I don't want to
No, let loose, Andrew. I love a good swear sentence.
Pisses me off, Rose. Just this whole corporate view where people think I can't push back. So talk to me about that. You love smart people who disagree with you.
There's about 1 million ways to solve every problem. So you need people who have better brains than yours to solve them. If you even look at the business that I'm in at the moment, many of the people that have come into that business on my watch are just better than me. They are smarter than me, and they probably disagree with me from time to time hugely, but that results in a better idea. I do not like people that look at you and smile and nod, and the minute they leave a room, they are in dissent. That is both nasty and undignified.
You're not talking about this corporate cloak and dagger world. Does that exist, Rose, where people are in a meeting and they look at a PowerPoint presentation and they're nodding going, oh, yes, sir, yes, ma'am, and then they walk out and go, what a tool. This doesn't. Like, surely our listeners and people watching on YouTube, no one does that in the corporate world.
I am sad to say it's still out there. Hopefully less and less in the business that I'm a part of. We are a lot more honest these days, but you need to tell the truth about the disagreement. And also, if there's a better way of solving it, bring it to the table. I love people that get it better than I do and can say to me, Rose, I don't agree with that opinion. I don't think that is the right strategic move. I think we should do this. A lot of the leaders at WPP are far better than I will ever be, and that's why they are in that business. There's no shame in being wrong. There's no shame in having somebody else's idea be the winning idea. I think there's a lot of shame in not leaving it all out on the field. If I use a sports analogy, right, you need your best people in the game to come to a good decision. I just want more of that everywhere. The shame of conflict is that most people are terrified of it, and so they avoid it.
Yeah, talk to me more on that, because as you're saying that I'm running parallel, I spent about a third of my life in sport. It is healthy conflict because you've got a scoreboard. You know, players might play 25 or 30 times a year. So they've got 25 to 30 performance reviews. And we look at it, not the personality, the person, the process. What worked, what didn't work, what do you need to improve or adapt next time? Whereas in the corporate world and a lot of our audience, we just don't build that in, that, hey, I'm going to give you some really constructive feedback. This is not personal. Don't take it pointed. This is to get better. Somewhere along the way, we've missed that. And the cloak and dagger, a previous organisation I worked at, a consulting firm that a lot of people know, I couldn't believe the corridor conversations, and people would be absolutely slaying. It was like Game of Thrones, and then you go back into the boardroom or the meeting and they're being nice. Like, I cannot comprehend that. So be honest, be open, but how do you create that environment? Because it's different to what most people are used to.
It is. I think you've got to, there's a saying in our line of work, be hard on the work, but not on the people. So I separate the feedback on the strategy or the idea or the work practice, the discipline that our clients are paying us to deliver, not on the person. I'm not attacking an individual. I'm attacking the construct of the idea or the strategy. And I'm very clear about that. People need to feel safe and that I'm not going to like them any less if I disagree with them. Same for me. The other thing is I often go first. When I'm having a bad day, and we all have them, I will say to my leadership team, I'm having a terrible day. It's a shocker. I'm off my game. I'm not at my best. I need help. Help me. And I don't know if I can even do this job today, but just the truth of that. And I won't even use words like vulnerability, just the truth of I'm having a crappy day and I'm not sure I'm a very good leader, but that I recognize that in myself. I don't need anybody to tell me. Gives people permission to just be themselves. And when they're themselves, that's when the good stuff comes out of their mouth, the truth. That's my lesson to myself in all of that.
A lot of that goes back, we talk family of origin. It's such an important influence on our careers, isn't it? So
it really
you could have
is.
said, hey, that was a harsh upbringing, but even your narrative, your story, you look at the joy in that. The skip is coming to your family to have the prosciutto, your pronunciation's much better than mine. The richness, the diversity, this was implanted in you from a young age.
Hugely. And I think the one other thing that I will add is black humour helps a lot as well. We laugh a lot. We should be laughing more in life, but when you've got to deliver a message of conflict where you disagree with an idea, you can deliver it with a lot of love and a lot of compassion and a lot of humour and make it about the disagreement of the business strategy, not the person, and it softens everything up. And oftentimes when I'm getting a very angry leader coming at me with something they disagree with, I will pick up the phone and say, are you here to deliver your morning beating? Because I know that we're in a conflict moment. And that immediately I make them laugh and I go, it's Rose, I'm ready to take my beating. And then they know that they're about to give me a serve. And that's okay. That's a way to get them to just tell the truth about the disagreements that we have that we can resolve.
Does it ever not work? Does someone say, look, Rose, I don't want the humour today. Come on.
Very rarely, because in the end, life is finite. And I often say to people, you get 85 good years. What are you going to do with them? Honestly, the job is just the job. It cannot take over one's whole life, and it puts everything into perspective.
I'm going to raise you a little bit. I'd like to think we can get 100 if we look after ourselves. That's one of the premises of listening to the Performance Intelligence podcast. So really interesting, the roots of your mindset. There's another component when I tracked your career, because, as an entrepreneur, you love the word entrepreneur, right? Like for people listening, Rose has just screwed her nose up.
No, I don't. I'm just a standard small business person.
We'll come back to entrepreneur. I am teasing you. But you've consistently been early. Like you're early today from a time or a chronos point of view, but you've been early to trends, early to culture shifts, and early to business model changes. A lot of leaders react, whereas I get the feeling you anticipate. Let's go into that, this part of leadership around anticipating, because even in your early 20s, you set up a business. It was a content business when we still had dial-up, like, hello.
Yeah, which failed, by the way, and I lost $1 million. So for anybody listening, this all sounds good, but there's plenty of times where I have screwed up monumentally. The early thing is as much about respect. I didn't want to be late for you this morning, Andrew, because I think when you're late to any meeting, it says my time is more valuable than yours. So that was drummed into us as children, and I kind of love that.
How many staff do you have, WPP Australia, New Zealand, that you lead?
About 2,500.
Okay, so if someone who's managing or leading 2,500 people can be 15 minutes early for a podcast, we can all be punctual and on time.
And I just think that. I think that's the basic. But I think being early for me is seeing around corners. My job description growing up, certainly the skill or the trade that I have is quantitative futurism. I look at data points and I look at social changes and demography. And I want to anticipate a shift. What is happening in our society? And that comes from hardcore fact, whether it's ABS data or HILDA data or global data that we get from the World Health Organization. There's a trend line that you can follow, and in that you'll find the money. There was a trend line with regard to the hotel industry, which borne out Airbnb. There's a trend line in the taxi industry, which turned into Uber. These were all trends that somebody captured at a moment in time and monetized them to great success. I find a lot of joy in that. there's fun in that, but I'm there because that's where the money is. The money is always on the edges, not in the middle.
We're not allowed to talk about money in this podcast. Now, we met, for context, 3 weeks ago. We're in NAB in Melbourne, the Docklands, and you did a keynote after lunch before me. And I saw this vivacious woman on stage who had the following quote: "The rappers have a better relationship with money than the banks." They talk about banking, going to get bank. They talk about mo money. And you went on this soliloquy, and I was just sitting there going, this is amazing. Did you see how uncomfortable the audience was? They were uncomfortable, but at the same time they're going, oh, God, yeah, because banks don't talk about money.
That's it. I got so many text messages.
You ripped into them that day. It was great.
LinkedIn messages from the people at NAB just saying if there's anything more that I can read or can I be in your trends orbit. What's interesting is that's just one of those truths. Money and moolah and bank and coin and all the rapping language is really cool, right? And I think
we're going to put a rap overlay on this. So we're going to sound. You and I are going to sound really
great.
funky.
I'm not sure. I'm not sure white people should rapping other than Eminem, but anyway. But there is something to be said for looking at where the edge is. And if I look at the banking industry, there's a lot of edge in money that the banking industry doesn't avail itself of. If they did, it might be more accessible to everyday Australians to take care of their money and take the exhaustion and the fear of money away from it, to get people excited about superannuation, because guess what? We need it. We need money to retire. How do you make that sexy? And that's just one of those examples of taking a trend in one area and applying it to something else.
In a 2024 interview in The Australian, you said the following: "When it comes to partnerships in business, there is too much resource sucked into the vortex of the obvious, the predictable, the sensible, the common. Very little time is given to exploring the lateral, the unusual, the oddball. At WPP, we are having quite the love affair with uncommon partnerships. For one very good reason: new money can almost always be found there, and change often forces companies to stick to what feels safe."
Yes, I always love being quoting me to me. Andrew, that's so true. What I love in business is putting together the unusual businesses and getting them to come to a common ground. I used it in the context of, if you look at Bunnings, one of the best days of trading they had was with the Bluey partnership and Hammerbarn, where that took over the name of Bunnings. Now, if you think about BBC content in Bluey partnering with Australia's most trusted and loved brand, in that connection, you find a trading day where the kids of Australia and the families of Australia are walking into Bunnings and having a whale of a time. That is but one example. And so those kinds of partnerships are so exciting to me. We need more of them more often, rather than the obvious. Mediocrity doesn't do much for any business, but the odd or the strange does.
You missed one thing: the sausage sanger and the community aspect. Isn't it clever? When you look at the Australian Trust Index, of memory, the last 10 years, Bunnings has been first out of 8 or 9 years. So when they look at the most reputable, trusted companies in Australia, it's been built on white bread, some tomato sauce and a sanger from your local butcher.
That's it. And there's a beauty and an honesty in that. Those charities keep all the money. They simply get the space. There's something really humble in that too, which is very much Bunnings as well. They're not chest beating. They don't talk about that part of their business. They just do that for the local community. I think that's terrific.
In preparing for our interview, listening to a bunch of podcasts and listening to you stir up the audience in NAB, I thought you're in a world now that someone would look at from the outside. It's glamorous, it's glitzy, it's fast-paced, it's rocket fuel. But that's not the reality of being a leader. So for a long time, you've had big organisations, big expectations, big public visibility. I see this with so many real leaders. It's not in the strategy, the decision-making frameworks, or even the vision. It's your capacity. You've got good energy. So how do you build that capacity and hold the energy? How do you stay regulated? How do you stay clear? How do you keep leading when the pressure is high? My assumption, Rose, is you've trained this, that you've front-loaded these skills. Am I right? Yes or no?
I think you're right. Yeah, I do. There are 3 things I do, I think, well. I know when to switch off. I'm very good at saying no. This is a day for me. This weekend is all about relaxing and being calm and getting perspective. And I'm not one of those people that choose over things and can't sleep. I'm very, very good. Always. My family, my mum and dad were like, there's a time for play and there's a time for work. And there's a time for sleep, and we sleep 7 to 8 hours every night, and we are regular. There's a time for eating well. My mother grew everything in the backyard. We had pigs and chickens in the backyard growing up, vegetables and fruits. I didn't know that bread came out of a paper bag or a box until I started school, because my mother made everything from scratch. I would argue we were raised on wholesome, good food, and I very rarely eat anything out of a box. If it comes out of the ground, eat it. It doesn't need to be low fat. I eat a high fat, good quality fats diet. The good oils.
Point, so 1, switching off is 2, nutrition.
Yeah, 2,
yourself.
Nutrition. 1, switching off, 2, nutrition. And 3, back engineering is probably the best way that I'll talk about it. I have a fairly fast mind. I can digest vast volumes of information quickly. I come to an end game first, and then I back engineer how to get there. I'm quicker than most on what the answer is. There's both good and bad in that, because it lacks patience for other people to catch up, and I've often been told that I need to slow down. I don't know if that's necessarily a good or a bad thing. I think sometimes in life, if you slow down too much, you're not ahead of the curve. It makes me nervous to slow down too much, because the world is won by those that get there first. And this is sport. It's probably so true in sport. But I think back engineering, a problem that you can already solve in your head, is a great bonus in life.
Okay, couple of open loops. Gosh, how rich. Switching off, fuel yourself with the right food, and back engineer. I reckon I could have done those 3. I've just written something. Can you read that on the bottom of the sheet for me? What does that say? It's not Croatian.
No.
It's rever nairenigni.
No, what does that mean?
It's back engineer in my language. So
okay.
Aivähäs ite layer way drew watilba or anak klatsadror kakab, so like a anak klatsadror off. I have this really weird ability where I can speak backwards as quickly as I can speak forwards. So reverse engineer.
That is amazing.
Tratshatua erta deni nidanim. Start with the end in mind. It's a totally useless skill. Sitai la talatat, essasalas laslalix. For anyone who's listening on the podcast, if you're not watching this on our YouTube channel, Rose has just dropped her jaw. I realised at 5 years of age I could speak
So
backwards.
this is always, since you're a little kid?
Yeah, it's a useless yet really powerful skill. If I'm teaching someone about goal setting or is rever nairenigni, start with a really clear vision and work. So draw KCAP. Anyway, I digress, but I'm just nodding profusely. And for our audience, it's a great lesson from someone who's built a career selling 3 businesses, now running one of the world's largest agency globally. Number 1, switch off. Balance, stress and recovery. Get lots of good sleep. 2, fuel yourself. Sounds like you're very much that Mediterranean type holistic diet.
Yes.
And 3, have a really clear vision and work to draw KCAP. Are you over the backward stuff now? It freaks people out a little bit.
It does. Freaks me out completely. The thing that I will add on the vision is there are days where you are in the weeds, right? And you're in the tall grass, and the vision is what just reminds you that it's just a bad day, and you're going to have them. I struggle with the narrative in our society right now where what I considered growing up as just a bad day can sometimes now be put into the category of a serious mental health issue. I think it sometimes is just a bad day, and I have them when I get home, and I have a big cry. I can cry you a river, Andrew. I've perfected the art of crying. Letting it all out and just having a good long cry can really help, because it's been a very tough day, and I've had very tough people in my office who've had very tough days themselves, and I can get home and just let all of that go. Even crying is a great release. That's a great reset. But I don't want anyone to listen to this and think that it's easy to always have a vision. Sometimes you get lost in it, and the vision is there to remind you that it's just a bad day. That's it.
Do you have a clear vision where you are now? Is it years, like 12 months, 3 years, 5 years? How does that work for you now?
I do. I look at 2-year increments for my own life. 24 months is about as much as I want to plan for, but I think about it in terms of what did I want to achieve in 2025 or 2026? What's important enough for me to worry about? And then I'm very comfortable with a lot of mess and a lot of chaos and a lot of change. I think there's beauty in the mess. I'm one of the people that doesn't get nervous about massive change. If my life changed dramatically tomorrow, I'd actually hustle and be 100% okay. And that's probably the part about me that I like the most. I'm not defined by the job. It's what I do. It's not who I am. I'd rather be a better sister, daughter and fiancée to somebody. Doesn't concern me. Mess is okay by me. And that's the thing that I guess, again, I worry about in our society, unless it's really solid and locked down, nothing's locked down. Nothing's locked down.
And it's the ambiguity and the complexity and the messiness where greatness comes out.
Yeah, I agree.
Another podcast for another day, but I just cringe when I hear everyone's a winner. Hey, we're going to give everyone a gold medal for participation. I think, fuck that. Okay. Like when we grew up, you had people would do the hard work and they'd stand on the number 1 box or the number 2 or the number 3, and then that taught you hard work, overcoming challenge. I grow, I learn skills, I get self-efficacy and confidence, and I keep doing it in the feedback loop. I say we should do this in another podcast. I worry so much. You have an organisation with 2,500 people. It must be a challenge between drive and the vision you have and the success you've had and adapting to a new generation. I can't even imagine how you do that. I struggle with a small team.
It's tough. Like, we're going through a tough time. Our industry is going through a tough time. Our business is going through a tough time. I think the best is ahead of us. I genuinely believe that. Generationally, things have changed, and I think it's tough. I'm trying to remind people that losing isn't a bad thing because it teaches you how to win. So when we don't win a piece of business, we will often have a post-mortem. Let's dissect it. Let's look at how we lost. Let's look at where we could be better. Let's be honest with ourselves. Like anything in life, unless you are aware of what needs to change, it will never change. I think losing is great because you can go, we lost. And oftentimes people will say, we came second. And I said, no. Let's look at the language. We lost. We are losers. That's okay. Do not give me we're a close second or a runner-up. That's just not true in our game. You win a pitch or you lose a pitch.
I'm having a bit of a laugh. I can just imagine someone who's been corporatised in a bank, a consulting firm, in a telco for 20 years, 25 years. They've gone to private school. They've had a pretty good existence. You know, adversity was they couldn't get the dark colour midnight blue when BMW did their new release. Yes, I'm very much pigeonholing. You'd have some of those people come to your organisation. You'd shock the living daylights out of them. You're having healthy conflict. We lost something. No. We didn't come second. We bloody lost. Have you got moments, and can you think of anyone who's joined your organisation and you're talking like this and they're just looking at you?
I do. I've got a couple.
Who is this heretic?
Yeah, I've got a couple. I talked about when I was in the school running races in my local primary school, there was first, second, third loser. That was it. And I tell that story, and I had one of the people come to me and say, oh no, that's not good. Everybody should be getting a participation ribbon. And it's really unhealthy, Rose, because what you're saying is putting people down by being losers. And I'm like, well, no, some kids run faster. Some have other skills and don't run as fast. And, you know, performance and running isn't their game. Athletics isn't their bag. But I've had people say to me, that's not a story you should tell. And I think it's a great story to tell.
Inside your team.
Yeah. You know, it's challenging, it's confronting. And I said, no, I think it's important to know what your skills are and to work towards those skills and to also call out failure because that's where you learn. I've also had other examples where I've said, let's do a proper post-mortem, and there were a lot of excuses about why we didn't win that pitch, and it was the game was rigged, or the clients had a relationship with the people that won the pitch, or all these excuses. And I've had to say, no, that's an excuse. That's not true. I don't believe that. I think we just weren't good enough. I wasn't good enough. We as a team weren't good enough. The business that we showed up with wasn't enough to win this pitch. And I've had some people say that was quite harsh. I do choose my words carefully. I don't mean to hurt people, but I want us to get to why we lost. And so I have had people say it's very difficult to hear this conversation. And then I've had, you know, people globally in other parts of the business remind me that I need to be careful about what to say and how to choose those words, and I do. But I do think honesty should not be at the I don't think hurting feelings should be at the expense of honesty, or that somehow that will lead to people being mentally unwell. I think it's important to learn in every construct.
Can I tell you how refreshing it is to hear that? I love hearing that, especially someone in your position, and it's done with empathy. It's done with compassion. You're not doing this to be a smart ass or to really annoy people. You fundamentally believe this.
I know when I have failed, I often use myself. There was one big pitch we had this year where we didn't win. I was so upset with the team, and I said, guys, I take full responsibility. I feel like I'm not enough. I didn't show up enough. my work wasn't good enough. We all got a bit teary, but it was a floodgate of everybody talking about what they might do differently if we could have another go. Now, I had a win last week, which was a magnificent win, and I'm so proud of it. So I applied the losing pitch to this pitch that we've just won, and I'm delighted with the team. And that's a good leader, I think, saying I'm not enough, I need to learn, I need to be better, but not whine about it, not complain about it, and not poke my finger at the people that did win and say, oh, they won it, illegally, or they did something. They didn't. They were just better on the day. And this is a good sport analogy, I guess, in your field of sport, Andrew. People win, people lose.
Yeah, well, the scoreboard doesn't lie, right? Doesn't lie. And you have millions of people watching, so you've got to process that. And something I've adapted from sport and military, the work we do, on every debrief, what worked, what didn't work, what can we adapt to improve next time? Question I've got for you as you talk so candidly about that, why do you think we struggle so much with failure? And on top of that, why do you think we also struggle so much with being authentic and open?
I've got two good answers to that because I think about this question a lot. I think shame. I think in our society, failure is bad, and right off the bat, you're in a shame pool. I'm a loser. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm full of bluster. I'm an imposter. All that nonsense, which none of it is true. But the second part is even more interesting to me. When you know who you really are as a person and you know your skills and you just know you've got a great self-awareness, it's okay to fail. Like, I know who I am as a woman, as a sister, as a daughter, as an aunt to a lot of kids. My brother's got 4. My sister has 1, hopefully working on her 2nd. I've got a lot of godchildren in my life. At the essence of who I am, I know who I am, so I can deal with the rest fairly easily, and it doesn't define me. I think when your work life and your professional life becomes your life, you have no sense of yourself. You have no sense of your levels of integrity, your dignity, your values. If my job went tomorrow, if I got tapped to leave tomorrow, the effect would be one of, well, thanks for having me. I'm really grateful for the opportunities you've given me. It wouldn't even touch the sides, Andrew, quite frankly. And I think for a lot of people, if their jobs went tomorrow, they would be in a heap. And so I think how we live as humans in the world needs to be defined by who we are, not the jobs we do. And I got that lesson from my parents very early. So that's the great value of having really decent
do you want to
parents.
come and work for us? I hear what you're talking about, all the constructs. We have this performance-based identity. I perform, therefore I am. She's the CEO. She's the entrepreneur. She's the athlete. When she's not, unless you also have formed out that identity around purpose or why you're here on this planet, and they can coexist. So you can be a rock star and achieve in lots of domains and be a grounded person, as you say, a sister, an auntie, a godmother, a daughter.
And that's it. One of my godkids, we're going away. She's just finished her HSC and we're going away for a little holiday. And I promised her that we would do something, together. But when she sends me a little WhatsApp or gives me a buzz and says, I'm so happy to have you as my godmother, that's the only achievement. I tell this story. Her mum and dad texted me on her 18th birthday and said, we're really grateful we chose you, Rose. And I go, that's a much better accomplishment in having some way to shape a young kid who I think is an adorable young woman. She's going to be the most amazing thing in the world. Same as my sister when she says to her little one, Zora, I just want you to be a good aunt. I just want to be, that matters. That scorecard, if we're talking scorecards, that matters a lot more than what I'll ever do at WPP.
If I paraphrase, you define success on who you are, not what you do.
100%. 100%. And who I am is hopefully my father's daughter and my mother's daughter. These were the most extraordinary people. I don't know how you leave a war-torn Yugoslavia post-World War II. They came out to Australia in the 60s with literally nothing, no money, no language, nothing. My father built a very successful construction business. My mother was a full-time homemaker. My father gave us a lovely life, but in western suburbs, we grew up in St Mary's. And I said to my dad, why didn't you move us out of here? He's like, because I want you to see all the choices in the world. The kid next door was pregnant at 16. The kids that I went to school with, some of them ended up in jail on murder. Like, it was a pretty tough environment, but very clarifying in terms of where your life can take you. I love that about my parents. They didn't just take us to someplace richer. They kept us in a part of Sydney, which is a tough part of Sydney to grow up in, which I'm really grateful for.
You seem so balanced, so composed, so thoughtful. so together. You must have moments where you're not that.
Completely. And my fiancé will tell you that there are 1,000 of them because he sees them all when I get home from
It's
work.
interesting, you ask your significant other, you ask your kids, they don't ever think you're the rock star, you're just dad, mum, partner.
No, I have full-on meltdowns, and I had one last week and maybe the week before, and I was with one of my leaders and I said to her, I don't know what I'm doing in this job. I think someone else should be doing this job. But you just have these moments where everything piles on. But then you take a pause and you step back away from it. And oftentimes, as a strategist, I see the whole chessboard. It's one move that I've made that's probably could be the wrong move, but after a wrong move is the opportunity to make the right move. And in that moment, I'd lost all perspective. I was so close to the chessboard that I hadn't seen the whole board. You've got to come up above. And she just said to me, no, just having a bad day. That's all it took. Somebody that I trust in the office, in the work environment, saying, I got home and I said to Simon, oh my God, I don't know what I'm doing. He's like, darling, you're just having a bad day and you are human. And he's really good at reminding me that I'm not meant to be a superwoman. Nobody is. But it just allowed me to be myself, have a cry, put my bathrobe on, have whatever we had for dinner that night, barbecue chicken and a salad, watch a bit of cheesy television, hold hands and just reset. And you've got to do that for yourself. And I was kind to myself. I think that's the key. You've got to be really kind to yourself. And I don't think people are as much these days.
We're harsh on ourselves.
Yeah.
We have unrealistic expectations. I often explain a bad day is a jacket. You have a bad day jacket. At the end of the day, you take the jacket off and you can put it back on the bad jacket wall away from reach. But unfortunately, we can take a bad day, manifest into a bad week, bad month, bad quarter, bad year, bad decade, bad life, spiral. We become hopeless and helpless. You've obviously worked out strategies along the way to help you in all this. Have you had training? Is it innate? Balance of the two?
I just think, again, back to the way that we were raised. If you had a bad day or if you had like an anger, I had a terrible temper as a child. I mean, I was a pretty tricky kid. But my parents allowed us to be angry and to articulate our feelings. We were a talking family. We were talked through. Feeling sad is good. Feeling happy is good. Feeling angry, that's healthy too if you understand the anger and you can deal with it. For me, I think I got lucky. You get lucky in a good family environment, decent parents. I think that counts for a lot. But we were able to feel our feelings. So now when I'm feeling angry, I'll have a moment where I'm like, God damn it, I'm really angry about X, Y, Z. And I'm not going to lie to myself. It's anger. It's pure and simple anger. And I'll take it out. I'll yell, I'll scream, I'll do something that gets the anger out of the system because I think it's unrelenting sometimes, but unless you express it and you deal with it, it'll just eat you up in other ways. So that's my way.
A lot of our audience weren't lucky with the genetic lottery and that family of origin. What guidance do you give people who may sit in a presentation or in one of your leadership groups and pull you aside and go, hey, Rose, you're lucky. My life was the exact opposite of yours. There was trauma, there was tension, tantrums weren't given a reference. I just don't understand. I don't have any reference or framework to what you're talking about. What would you say to that person?
I'd say you have to fall in love with yourself before you can be any good to anyone else, the good and the bad. I mean, I've got a list of faults a mile long, Andrew. I don't want to pretend and say that I don't have a whole bunch of faults, and I do. But I know them. I know how to deal with them, and I know that they're a part of who I am, for good, for better or worse. Get to know yourself. I say this a lot, but you've got to fall in love with yourself. The best love affair you're ever going to have and the best relationship you have is the one you have with yourself. Oftentimes when people say that to me, and I have got a few people who've said that to me very recently, they don't like themselves. A big part of it is the self-loathing and the anger toward whatever's gone before, bad parents, bad upbringing, tricky divorce, all the things that all of us, many of us are going to come to terms with or have to face in our lives. You got to make peace with yourself. If you're carrying around a load, nothing good will happen. You've got to see therapists, talk to people that you trust, let it all out, be honest about what's really gone on in your life, deal with it, and then you can move forward.
You've done a lot of work and contemplation and reflection to get here, haven't you? This is not just in the taxi.
I really have,
I'm talking to the guy with the shiny head. I'm going to get my story straight.
No, I really have. And also...
You said to me something when we were even having a coffee bufore. It would make you pull your hair out and then you laughed. What was that about, Rose?
Well, you don't know. There's not much hair there, Andrew. There's not much hair there left at the moment. But I think the part that I want to be really clear on is there are a lot of parts of my personality that I struggle with. There are things about me that I'm like, God, Rose, the lack of patience, sometimes I jump to judgment quickly. I don't listen. I there's all these things about me that I want to change, but it's a work in progress like we all are. But I know them. I know they're true, and I'm not running from them or pretending that they're not otherwise. I think when you lie to yourself about the parts of you that are the ugliest, that will come back and get you in a different way. Everybody's got them. It's just tools to manage them and be honest. And there are some things that I will never be good at. I don't want to. I don't pretend. It's just how I'm built, and that's okay too.
And the way you're built, there's a level of curiosity and courage that you tapped into at a young age. Now, this comes from an N=1 as an entrepreneur or building, selling businesses. I have to ask you about that journey, and I've got a couple of questions that everyone else might just shut down, but I really want to get some of these answers. You started your first business in your 20s. You mentioned before you'd lost $1 million.
Yeah.
Tell us about that.
Yeah. So we went. It was a trends business called Pop House, and there was a theory that there would be a lot of money to be made in content, which of course there is now.
Give us a timestamp.
So 1999, 2000, 2001. Now in this country we were going from, if everybody remembers, the dial-up internet to the ADSL, but we weren't there.
Worried about Y2K. Remember
That's
New
right.
Year,
It was all that.
Happy New Year with all the electronics. We thought they were going to crash.
That's right. There was a time in copper wire where you used to get under a desk, if you remember, and pull out the cable and whack in the internet cable. And we were early to that dance, and there wasn't enough bandwidth. It was too early, and we lost a whole chunk of money doing something that the market wasn't ready for at all. And then having to go, oh my God, we lost a lot of money. We've now got to work even harder. I want to say to everybody listening, there's a romance to being a starter of a business. I was working for a period of time, 16, 18-hour days for a couple of years, eating baked beans and canned soup because there wasn't any real money left over. I want to say to anybody, it is wonderful to have a plan, but please do not mistake being an entrepreneur, and that's that word, with hard graft. Everyone has a Kardashian dream in their mind, or a Mark Zuckerberg or a Jeff Bezos, one of them. They all had many years of hard work at some point in time. It's hard, and I did it in my 20s when there was limitless energy and it was the right time to do it, but also I did it because, and this is the part that's really honest, I was just dumb, Andrew. It didn't occur to me that it wouldn't work, because when you're young, you're naive, you're incredibly green, you're absent-minded about failure because you just don't think it'll happen to you. There's a stupid fearlessness that comes from youth. I used it. I don't know if I do it now.
Is it dumb or innocence?
I'd say, look, it's I call it bright-eyed, bushy-tailed innocence. You're innocent to failure because it hasn't happened to you. That is helpful and useful, but there was a doggedness to my success that it didn't occur to me that I would not be able to make money and feed myself, or make enough money to pay people on payroll, the staff, or one day make it a business I could sell, which I did to STW. It didn't occur to me. So there's that component, and I don't want to be like I had a great plan for success. I didn't consider failure, which is probably really, honestly, if I'm thinking about it now, dumb. Innocent, I'll use your word, but you need to have a bit of that to do the things that you want to do in life. A little bit of jump off a safety, jump off a cliff. My dad used to say, jump off a cliff and a safety net will appear. Oh, that's a great saying, right?
And as an entrepreneur, you've also got to have a resilience about you. I interviewed Naomi Simpson in this studio. You'd know Naomi in your ventures. She quoted Tim Pethick, founder of Nudie, who said, an entrepreneur is like being a clown punching bag. And when she said that, I just went, oh my God, I've built and sold a couple of businesses, and there's my A track, cassette tapes we had. There's your hot hits, your A list, and everyone will go, Andrew's done this and that. But what you don't tell them is when you're on the bones of your ass and you may have taken superannuation out to pay tax, like all the different things that you sometimes do. And there's that B side, it's the real hits. But I really resonated with that, a clown punching bag. When have you felt like a clown punching bag? And are you able to share a story like, did you ever get so close to the razor's edge where you thought, stuff it, I just cannot do this, and just whatever happened, divine intervention, sliding to a moment that got you out?
Yeah, I mean, certainly in the early years of Pop House, when it was like nothing's going to work and we're not going to get these projects off the ground, you could have 10 people at once coming at you with complaints and failure, and you just start to feel like you're smelling failure all over you, and you think, what the hell am I doing? I should just go back. And I left a really handsome corporate job to start Pop House. I worked for a year. I rose through the ranks really quickly. They put me on a very big wicket for my age. I chucked all that in to do this. I've had a number of moments where I've had so many people coming at me at once where I'm just feeling overwhelmed, but then it's a moment in time. And that's the trick. It's just going, this is a moment in time, and it isn't reflective of all of my time. And I'm in one at the moment because we're in an industry that's up and down. AI is coming at us. There's a lot of change.
Saying creative agencies, AI is going to just get rid of thousands and thousands of staff, and you're going to be left with the shell of the business that you have.
There's a lot of that, though you can't replace originality and lateral thinking. Maybe in a decade's time, 5 years' time, when it becomes ASI, superintelligence, when we get to the Sam Altman view of superintelligence, you might be able to do originality and imagination. Not yet, and that's me. That's my mind. That's a lot of people that work at WPP who are exceptional at what they do and joining dots in a way that no machinery can yet do. There's a huge role for us to play. There's an incredibly big role for us to play. We just have to play it. Now is not the time for the crouch position. Now is the time for forward, momentum, energy, get it done, prove to our clients that what we offer cannot be replaced and is irreplaceable. And when I'm at my best, I know that that's true. Now, when I'm at my worst, that's when I'm feeling vulnerable and, oh my goodness. But when I'm at my best and I'm firing on all cylinders and my brain is giving those lateral thoughts to our biggest clients, they're so excited. They're like, this is what we can't get from any machinery. This is why we need you at our table to talk about these opportunities. That gives me great comfort. But look, I've been in a hole many times. The difference is now I know the way out. I know the way out of that hole. A lot of my job is to help people climb out of that hole, because you can feel very lonely when you're deep in that hole, and you would know this yourself in your business life.
Multiple times. Yeah. And it's easy in hindsight, and it can sound a bit kitsch that we sit up here and go, oh, I've been in a hole, I climbed out, and that was my greatest growth. But it's so true. You don't learn from the easy opportunities you get, or when you're gifted. It's when you work your backside off, and you would have had times where you would have gone, oh, girl, do you call yourself girl? Champ, I can't do this. But when you do, oh my God, it is an amazing feeling that nothing can replicate.
It is. And again, my dad used to say, just keep moving. 3 words. On days where I'm in that little hole and crouch position, it's get up, get dressed, go to the office, do the work that you need to do. Just do the work. Sometimes and you're feeling like, I just don't know, I want to give up, this is too hard. But you just have to keep moving. And I'm often have his ethnic accent, just keep moving. He used to say it in Croatian and in English, but I've got that in my head at the moment, just keep moving. And I say to my fiance often, he's like, it's just one of your just keep moving days, just get moving. You know, when nothing comes of nothing, or when you're in a stationary position, you just go into yourself.
It's that helplessness, hopelessness. It's the vicious cycle, and you spiral down.
Completely right. So for me, it's just keep moving, show up, turn up every day. You'll have one good meeting in a day, another good meeting, which turns the tide, a third good meeting, dampens the crappy meetings that you've had a day before, and all of a sudden you're starting to feel better. But there's no shortcut. You've just got to do the work when it comes to that feeling.
As a common theme, so just to go back to being an entrepreneur, you said the glamorization of the Silicon Valley, the tech startups, the Zuckerberg, or we look at the Insta generation, you've got to work your backside off. Yes, you can use social media now to help you market, but I think there's this myth, like my son, him and his couple of his mates, they're 14. One of them wants to be a YouTuber. Arch was saying he wants to be a trader, which is good because I can get him in finance. But it's interesting what kids want to do now, be an Instagram or a YouTuber. I'm not saying you can't do that. There's people making money, but there's one commonality, Rose, in every domain we talk to in performance intelligence in the podcast. People have worked their backside off. So
Mr. Beast, the number one influencer in the world who has created $1 billion business, works really hard.
Worked for years before anyone
works
knew
really
of
hard,
the Beast.
Yeah. And so if you look at the whole, Jimmy Donaldson story, he's like, I worked, and it didn't just come overnight. And I think nothing replaces it, just good old-fashioned hard work. I know people have heard it a million times before, but sometimes just doing the work will make you feel better as well.
You don't like the word entrepreneur?
I think it's fancy, and I don't feel fancy at all. I think small business is one day at a time, and building equity in the business and building opportunity and showing evidence of success, having projects that you can turn to say we did that and we did that. Maybe my ethnic background, my dad had a small business, a construction business. Entrepreneur sounds super fancy to me, but it also does glamorize what is just hard work. And often I'll get kids who say, I want to do my own thing. And I'm like, let me explain what it's going to be like to you. Whatever hardness you think it'll be, times it by 1,000. It's lonely and it's hard and you can achieve wonderful things, but you're not going to get away from the fact that it's lonely and hard and about 1,000 times harder than what you think it'll be. And I don't want people to think it's the easy way out, because when you're self-employed, and you would know this, I remember thinking, oh my God, if I don't make any money, I don't eat. I don't pay the bills. I don't make payroll for the people.
But being self-employed is easy, Rose. You can work your own hours. You can do what you want to do. Yeah.
Often 20 hours a week, right? 20 hours a day. Yeah.
How are we going, Wiz? Are we selling the merits of starting a business and being an entrepreneur?
Sounds great.
What drives you? Because you're still, I feel there's a passion. And when you started talking about AI and some of the noise that's in your industry, did you feel that shift? You went up 20%?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah. What happened then?
I feel like I've got a responsibility to a lot of the people that I've asked to come and join WPP. And I've gone and made my case to the best talent in the country, a number of whom work at WPP running the businesses that we have. I have a responsibility to them to show up and lead, to be the best person I can be, the best version of myself. I take that very seriously, because I've asked them to come into my world and often forego other opportunities elsewhere. I can't just cut and run. I'm in it. And I'm in it up to my elbows, up to my neck. Sometimes somebody asked me the other day, are you in over your head? And I said, the water's exactly at my head today, right? Not in over, but exactly at. You get those days. But if I'm asking good people who have options and choices to work elsewhere, I need to be in it with them. I cannot just go, oh, bye, there you go. That is what keeps me going, those people, I'll be honest. And we've got a lot of great people, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people who are incredible at what they do.
So crystal ball, can you put your hands out for me, the imaginary crystal ball? You said 24 months, so I'll stretch you to 36, so 2 years to 3 years. What do you think you're doing? What do you think your industry looks like?
Yeah. I think our industry will have fewer, bigger, better in it. I think certainly it will reshape itself to have the very best thinkers in the business and people who really understand the business model of where our business is going. I think that's going to be our future. I think there'll be new jobs created. The funny thing that I say to people is, a decade ago, half of the jobs at WPP didn't exist.
Yeah, isn't that amazing?
Right? So everyone talks to me about all this destruction. And if you're a fan of economics and you read about Schumpeter's destruction, what he talks about is jobs are destroyed, but jobs are created. And the thing that no one talks enough about in our industry is the creation of jobs. We've got social media influencers. We've got people who are in parts of the business at WPP that literally didn't exist, Andrew. All these new jobs will come. I think there'll be another new set in the next 10 years for WPP. That really excites me. That's a future pathway for a lot of young kids coming up. And kids that are at university right now or are younger, who are at primary school, who want to come into our industry. So I've got a lot of faith that things will open up in whole new ways that we can barely imagine. So that's the business in 3 years' time. But there'll be a lot of space for, I think, wackier, crazier, more lateral people like me, like some of the things that I think are just outright nuts. I love the nuttier, the better, because lateral ideas at the fringes are tomorrow's new business models. And that is very exciting to me. And maybe in 3 years' time, I'll be working only in that part of the business, because I get paid to think of things other people don't that are seriously nuts. And that is where I get my most joy. So when a client says to me, imagine our industry 5-10 years from now, I go crazy. Now, it's based on data and trends, but it is an imaginative future that often makes them go, oh my God, if that comes true, we'd better get our skates on. I'm like, yes, right? And I shared some with NAB about what would happen if Apple got a retail banking license overnight. It would shape everything in this country for mortgages, home loans, all the other products and services. It would fundamentally shift the ball game literally overnight. They would probably steal 30% market share in 2 years. oh my goodness, that isn't a conversation I want to have. So that is my job, is to think that way.
So you download a song from a rapper talking about making more money or making bank, and then at the same time you go to the bank and you get a home loan approved on your mobile at the same time. Scary.
Well, Apple can give you a Mac and an iPhone for free and chuck in a home loan at a different basis points, because they are like a bank. They have more cash on hand than the US Federal Reserve. They have more cash on hand than the US Federal Reserve. What could they do with that cash? Open up a bank, be a retail bank, do some phenomenal things, shake things up. But that's just a crazy idea. Those are the kinds of ideas, by the way, that started Google, and they started Facebook, and they started Netflix, and they started all the things that we all consume today started with a kernel of an idea. They're the things that I would love to spend my future in. So that's hopefully me 3 years from now.
Very exciting, disrupted 3 to 5 year industry, or an amalgamation of industries. That's what I'm really stitching together. Have you got another business in you? You reckon at some stage you'll take some time to reflect and ruminate and pontificate and castigate, and then come up with the next business?
I might.
Is that breaking news?
I might. Well,
have you articulated this before?
Not really. I've said I like the idea of being at the mercy of the crazy. Like the good thing about being self-employed is you have no boss other than your imagination and where it can take you. So there's no limit on where you can take things when you're self-employed. And that's the part of being your own boss that is very sexy. The hard work I can live with, the crazy hours, the failure, all of that, the losing, because oftentimes you're pitching work when you're self-employed to potential clients or whatever. But I love the notion that the only person that can say no is you. That's kind of cool. And that's my version of sexy. So maybe, yeah, I miss that part of being, when you're part of something bigger, there is a construct in place. But when you're calling the shots, you can create the construct any way you like.
It is a roller coaster, isn't it? You would have had this. You sell your business, and then to start with, you go, oh, wow, I've got consistent salary coming in. I've got the holidays lined up, and then you do it for a while, and then there's this little itch going, hey, Rose, I think there's something else. Yeah. In wrapping up today, because I know you've got a business to run, I'm going to give you the flip. Is there a question in preparation for today you thought I'd ask that I haven't? Or the flip, is there a question you'd like to ask me?
I thought you would ask me a little bit more about the psychology of younger people and how we touched on it a little bit. And what do you do to mobilise people when they feel that they should probably get more than they have earned? I thought we'd go there, but maybe we will go there another time.
Do you want to give me one last thought on that?
Sure. Look, nothing comes for free. There are no free lunches anywhere. And I think one man's bad feedback is another man's stress leave. And I think we've got to figure out a middle ground on how to give feedback kindly, but be really honest with ourselves, because our nation is grinding to a halt. I do worry about our productivity. I worry about the next generation. I think we just need to be better at taking a few punches and getting back up again. There's something wonderful about having a really hard day and knowing that you can face a fresh day. Life is free will and choice. We all have choices to make. We can choose to be a victim of the world in which we're in, or we can choose to go, I'm going to learn from that and be better tomorrow. That's my final thought.
I've loved today. Thank you. Loads more questions I'd like to ask, but we'll save that for another day.
I appreciate that, Andrew.
Thank you, not just for being here, but thank you for being so honest and authentic. For a person in your role, with the influence you have in researching you, but more so today, Rose, you've been so open and you've dropped that facade that a lot of leaders have, and I know our audience is going to get a lot from that.
Well, thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure chatting.
Thank you.